Hello and welcome to the For Her Empire podcast. I'm your host Abby Ngaucha, and in this podcast we address the personal and the business issues that female entrepreneurs face in their day-to-day lives. Our guest today is Megan Hamilton. Hi Megan.
Hi, Abby.
Hi. So Megan is a public speaking coach. She helps women who struggle with speaking anxiety, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so can you tell us?
So
Huh?
I
Just tell us about yourself. Don't
yeah.
worry.
Okay. So I'm a public speaking coach, and I typically work with women. Part of the reason for that is that women face different challenges in general, and so often there's more to talk about in terms of public speaking and why it might be difficult for women to speak up. And so we address some of those issues as well. I have a course that I teach. It's called Big Voices for Women. And I really like doing that one because it's smaller groups of women, and we can sort of talk about what it's like to be a woman in the world. And we don't have to do that sort of background work to sort of talk about the challenges that we already know that we face. We don't have to it's a safe place to do it because most of the women in the group will already have experienced some of those. Yeah.
Okay. So I had asked this before we started recording, but I'm just gonna ask again. So, what's the difference between like a speaking anxiety, at least you being afraid to speak out publicly, and you just being introverted? What's the difference?
Well, often the two sort of are related. And so if you consider yourself to be introverted, then it might be difficult for you to speak up in general because you're sort of not used to expressing yourself outwardly. There's a really cool book called Quiet. I think it's Quiet, The Secret Power of Introverts or something like that.
Oh,
And it goes into detail about the different types of introverts and how a lot of the times what we think of as an introvert or an extrovert actually isn't quite right. And so a lot of introverted people really do enjoy having conversations with people or speaking up, but then very quickly have to go back and recharge and sort of be alone again.
okay.
But but speaking anxiety is, sometimes it can run really deep. So you can go back in your history and maybe you had a teacher who said something about your voice or
Oh,
sort of demanded that you speak up, that they couldn't hear you, or
oh,
somebody else in your life. Yeah. So you start to develop these anxieties about speaking up from points in your past, or you might just naturally be an anxious person, and so speaking your mind is not something that's very comfortable for you. So you might find yourself having difficulties in job interviews or conversations with your boss or work meetings, or if you're asked to give a presentation. I mean, that would be the worst possible thing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we go
Oh,
over some of the reasons why why you might be feeling that way, and then we get to sort of very specific ways that you can train yourself to be able to overcome that so that you can speak up when you need to.
okay, okay. So you had mentioned something like as you were explaining about the difference between being introverted and having a problem speaking publicly. So you mentioned how you might, let's say, have a history teacher who tells you to speak up a bit more. You might have some personal confrontation in the past that had sort of brought in this anxiety and made you nervous to speak publicly. So would you say that this anxiety with speaking publicly is rooted in like having some sort of confidence issues? Are they related?
Definitely.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yes. So, and one of the ways that you can start to build your confidence is by working through, this system of, so I talk about four things: standing using something called the Alexander
Yeah,
technique,
I was wondering what that
breathing.
was.
Oh yeah, okay. I can talk about that now.
Yeah, please.
So, okay, Alexander technique is it's an old way of learning how to carry your body and So Alexander was a man in the late 1800s. He was an actor in Australia.
Okay.
And he started to notice that at the end of plays, he was losing his voice. And so he was curious about that. And he started to examine himself in a mirror as he was doing his, his characters and his
Yeah.
voices. And he started to notice a pattern in how he was carrying his body and how that affected his voice. So that was the beginning of Alexander technique.
Yeah.
And then over a long period of time, realizing patterns, and he started to sort of develop what he thought was the best way to carry your body in space. And it's very similar to mountain pose in yoga in terms of standing in Alexander.
Yeah.
Alexander, what do we call it? Yeah.
I do yoga.
Yeah, okay. So mountain pose is very open, and it's a relaxed position, but there's lots of energy in it, right? And so again, it's very similar, but it also gives you a lot of presence. So one of the ways that you can sort of instantly change the dynamic of a conversation if it's difficult is to slowly go into Alexander stance, which is an open and powerful way of standing. And you can see a shift in the conflict you might be having with another person. You can see how they shift when you open up powerfully. So that's
You're intimidating
one
them.
of the things. Yeah, well, exactly. And I mean, because the alternate sometimes is if you're having a difficult conversation with conflict and it's uncomfortable and you don't really want to do it,
Yeah.
you might actually start to sort of round your shoulders and
Oh, oh, oh,
curve
oh.
in and right and not have eye contact. But if you sort of open up and make
Oh.
eye contact, that gives you a totally different power dynamic, right? And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
easy. Yeah. Once you know how to do it, you just do it. Even if it feels difficult, you know what to do. And I've seen that change. And I've done it myself too. I've seen that change where somebody's come at me with a really intense energy and they're really angry about something.
Oh my God.
And you just sort of stand up and that just changes everything. It can diffuse it really quickly.
Oh my God. I'm starting to worry about your safety right now.
No, 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 no,
Are
no,
you
no,
okay?
no, that
Are
was
you
good.
safe?
I am so safe. I couldn't
Okay.
be more safe, actually. I don't go outside anymore.
Okay. So the first element, which is the Alexander style, is you sort of like, wouldn't you be self-conscious about doing that though? Like you're about to speak, wouldn't you feel like you're putting on an act or you're playing a character or something? Or is that advisable?
Well, I mean, the thing about this system is it's, um, you just go back to the basics. And so we go through, we talk about standing, so standing and Alexander technique, and then you go
Yes.
to breathing. So you do deep and controlled breathing. And so if you said you do yoga, you'd be very used to this as well. So deep breathing, obviously, we know about that. It's very effective, but it also really supports a strong voice. And controlled breathing is when you are deciding ahead of time when you're going to breathe in and when you're going to breathe out. And when you do that, you're sending a signal to your brain that you're not in fight, flight, or freeze mode, which is the stress response. So
Yeah.
some of the things that happen when we're in stress response are, and tell me if you've ever experienced any of these. Um, you get sweaty, you get your heart rate goes up, you might start to shake a little bit. I've got a whole list of them here. Your chest gets tight, you could get dizzy, headache, dry mouth, the choking feeling, blushing. So all of these things can happen to you when your body thinks that you're in
In
danger.
danger.
And
Yeah.
the quickest way to control that, yeah, but you're not in danger, right? You're just getting up and speaking in front of a bunch of people, but your body starts to behave as though you're in some kind of danger.
Yeah.
And so a really quick way to get past that is to practice controlled breathing because it sends a signal to your brain that you're not in danger. And so it stops producing the stress hormones, the cortisol and adrenaline, which is what makes you feel all of those different sensations. And so that gets you into sort of a calm and grounded place. So you're standing open, you're in Alexander, you're breathing deeply, and you're practicing controlled breathing. And so you're in a place where you can start doing your presentation or having that difficult conversation or standing up for yourself if you need to. And then from there, we move on to optimum pitch, so using your voice. So it's a sort of a difference between if you're soft spoken or if it's hard for you to speak loudly, finding your optimum pitch and using the breath support that we just talked about, the deep breathing and opening up and giving yourself a lot of breath support allows you to have a deep, resonant, but loud voice as well, if that's something you need to pull out in a difficult conversation or a speech. And it commands authority as well.
Oh. What does an optimum pitch sound like? Like
Optimum pitch? So, yeah, sure. It's so the way you find it is you take some deep breaths during Alexander, and then you essentially sort of open up your mouth and let out a ha sound, and you allow your open. What you did the first time was like a really good way to find it as well. Yeah. Love it. So when your ribs are open like this, you allow the gravity, I guess, of them to naturally close, and then the sound that you start producing when it's coming from your diaphragm will resonate all around the hard surfaces in your body. So your cheekbones, your forehead, your chin, your hard palate, but also all in your rib cage. And so if you say, "Hi, my name is Abby," and you keep your hand on your chest, just try that.
Hi, my name is Abby.
Did you feel resonance? Did you
Like
feel
a tiny
vibrations
vibration?
in your hand? Yeah. So breathe
Hi.
into your diaphragm. Yeah.
Hi.
Did you feel that a little? Hi.
Hi.
There you go. Did you feel that?
Hi, my name is Abby. Ooh. I like how it sounds. So like I'm like in
It's cool, eh?
a washroom with all those tiles around, and it sort of like echoes.
I think I just lost you for a second.
Oh, okay. So I said it sounded like I was in a washroom with tiles everywhere, and then it just sort of
Yeah,
echoes.
that's right. And that's exactly the same thing. So it's the reverberation of sound. So in that way, your chest is sort of like the echo chamber, but it's the same thing. And so when sound is bouncing around on hard surfaces, that's why we sound so good in the bathroom, right? Because it's this
Thank you.
beautiful reverberation of
I
sound.
know. I'm an
Yeah,
artist in the bathroom only.
creating it in your body. Yeah. Yeah. I'm a great singer in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the exact same principle.
Oh, okay. So there's the four elements. There was the standing Alexander. Then there's the deep
Yep.
breathing. Then there's the optimal pitch where you sort of
Yep.
like let the air suck it in, it out. Then what's the last one?
The last one is reading. So when you have to give reading,
Oh, reading.
when you have to give, yeah. So when you have to give a speech or a presentation and you've got your script in front of you and you have to present it to a group of people, it's a technique called text mapping where you organize, you map out your speech. So you put in things like breath bars and different symbols to let you know what's coming ahead. And then you practice reading 3 to 7 words ahead of what you're actually speaking.
Oh.
So what's happening there is that you're creating sort of a buffer in your brain. You know, like when you go to watch a video and the little circle is going like this.
The buffer and thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's buffering. So
Yeah.
you're creating a buffer in your head of between 3 to 7 words. And so that way you can look up from the page and deliver those words with eye contact to people in your audience, because when you make eye contact with people in your audience, they feel much more engaged with you, and it's a more natural way of communicating than just
Yeah.
sort of going like this and reading from a
My name
page.
is Abigail. I.
Yeah, exactly. I had a teacher once who read an entire book in our class. It was so boring. And he read it like this with his head down the
Oh.
entire time, and it was like 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 a difficult book too. So it was like
Oh.
it just made it all that worse because it was so
I think
boring.
you guys intimidated him.
Say that again.
I said I think you guys intimidated him. That's why he just put his head down and read.
Yeah, maybe he was feeling shy.
Yeah. So I want to ask because you had mentioned the breath bath, and I honestly have no idea what that is. What's a breath bath?
Oh, okay. So a breath bar is like a backslash that you put at every punctuation point in your speech.
Okay.
So I have a free public speaking guide. Let me put
Okay.
that here. And it talks a little bit more about that. But essentially, at every point where there's punctuation in your speech,
Mm.
so a period, a comma, a semicolon, you put a breath bar. And then you're taking a breath at every time there's a breath
Oh.
bar. So it would be yeah, so it would be a full breath at the ends of sentences, so periods and question marks, and then top up breaths in between, so commas, things like that. So what you're trying to do is make sure that you have enough breath support to get you to the end of your sentence.
Yeah.
Because often we speed up if we're starting to run out of breath.
Yes, you
We
then
speed
get
up
winded.
to
Yeah.
try to get to the end of the sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you might lose your breath at the end of the sentence, so you end up talking like this. And then we lose, the last few words of the sentence, which are often the most important because they've just summarized everything that's come before. So you lose some of your power, and then the audience spends the next couple of seconds wondering what you just said and trying to decipher that, and then they lose the next little bit that you've started
Yeah.
to say already because they're back in the past trying to
Yeah.
figure
Yeah.
out what you
Yeah.
just said. And it also helps with pacing. So when you are forcing yourself to take a breath, you are making sure that you're staying slow and steady throughout the course of your speech.
Okay.
But the cool thing, and this is my favorite part about it,
Okay.
is when we put in breath bars, we're controlling where we're breathing. And we just learned about controlled breathing
Yeah.
that helps you stay calm and focused.
Yeah.
So it's a way of putting into your speech how you can stay calm and focused so that you can still deliver it sort of being present as opposed to getting lost in physical reactions to stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like my favorite thing. Yeah.
I just learned about breath bars right now, so yay! I'm thriving right now.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like
So when you do,
editing.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's editing, it's adding symbols, but then again, when you're reading ahead, so when you're reading like the 3 to 7 words ahead, you're also reminding yourself of how you wanted to present that. And so, I have this example of when I was reading Harry Potter to my daughter, there was a scene where it was something like, "Get out of the way, Harry," Hermione whispered. Right? So I had yelled it, and I was supposed to have whispered it.
Okay, that's
But if I'd been reading ahead, when you're reading a book and you can't remember who the character is,
yes, yeah. Oh, no, I get it.
So if I'd been reading ahead and like seen my notes and reminded myself of how I was supposed to be delivering this part, I would have got that a lot better. So yeah, exactly. So that's another way that you can sort of set yourself up for really delivering it in the way that you want to be delivering it.
Oh, that makes sense. So, how
Yeah.
how did you like discover these 4 elements? Like, I don't think you just like Google cures for anxiety. for speaking anxiety, and then they just came up, or like how do you find out about this?
So I went to theater school and I learned the classical way of training for actors.
Okay.
And so a lot of the stuff that I'm teaching is based in that. So it's training that I took 26 years ago when I went to theater school.
Yeah.
So it's yeah.
You need to be an
Yep.
actor, an actress,
Um,
or like a stage
that's what I
manager.
thought. That's what I thought I wanted to do. I know an actor. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do, and that changed
Why?
quite a while ago now. Um, so many reasons. I got really tired of showing up all the time, and and again, this goes back to feminism, but as a woman, I would show up for auditions, and the camera would go up and down on me,
It's like
and then
checking you out.
yeah,
Oh,
like literally
creepy.
every
Very
time.
creepy.
And like half the time I wouldn't even have anything to say. So they wouldn't, it would just be about how I looked. So I would, and I had a full-time job. And so I was constantly juggling auditions and like having to make, find somebody to cover my shifts and stuff like that. And the story of why I quit was one day I had an audition where I actually had text and I had to memorize it. And it was for a beer commercial.
Okay.
And it was terrible. I mean, it was about being in a threesome with another
Oh
girl
God!
and my
Oh
boyfriend
God! Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! Oh God!
and
Oh
a
God!
gift. I know. It wasn't like it was for a legit commercial. It wasn't like, like some like
So like a porn
it
script.
was
Let's be
supposed,
honest.
yeah, like that's what I wanted to say, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't. It was like a joke about making a threesome with my with another friend for my boyfriend's birthday. It was
Oh
for a
boy.
beer commercial, like of a national brand. But for the first, I had got a script
Yeah.
and I worked really hard on it. But like I saw all the other people that were there to audition, and they were all models, and I was just like, why am I doing this? It's
Yeah.
not. It's not. I don't get to go up and do Shakespeare. I'm sitting here like doing, you know, um,
Threesome
stomach acid
commercials.
commercials, and yeah. And
God.
then I quit. I left that day, and I was like, I just can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
But back in theater school, when we were learning all this stuff, we would say to each other, "This is so important. Like everybody should know this in order to be able to present and right." And so that's when I started to. A few years ago, I was working in a university, and some of the students were doing these competitions. And I asked around and I said, well, who's training them to present?
Mm.
And nobody was.
Yeah. Nobody
So
ever
I asked if
does.
I could.
Yeah.
I know. So that's when it started for me. And I realized that, I started putting things together. I started going back in my files for some exercises that we would do, and then started to develop my own. And that's when I sort of came up with this system. And again, it's based on my theater training, but there's
Yes.
lots of tweaks because not everybody wants to be an actor, but everybody does want to be able to represent themselves well.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah,
sometimes being confident when you don't quite feel confident is part of acting anyway. So I can see how
yeah,
the theater got into it. Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. So I I don't know how to phrase this. If it sounds offensive, let me know.
Go for it. Not much offends
Okay.
me.
Okay. So have you ever like coached somebody who's struggling with public speaking, and then it's what the what you're teaching them, the 4 steps is not exactly working, either because it's not suited for them, or because they're not applying it properly, but there's just no result. They're not getting any better at speaking. The anxiety is still there.
That hasn't happened to me yet. Everybody that I've worked with has improved. And so what depending on what your goals are. So sometimes I work with people who have to deliver a speech to 1,000 people. And sometimes I work with people who have a bully at work that they can't
Oh,
feel comfortable standing up to, right? And so it's different levels of what your end goal is.
mm.
And the thing about this stuff is that I've found you're never going to completely lose the anxiety. It's not like all of
Oh
a
God,
sudden
that's kind of
you're going to be
depressing.
really confident. Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, yeah. But you learn how to deal with it. And I think
Okay.
that's the trick. And so over time, it doesn't become the thing that's overpowering. It becomes just part of something that you know how to manage.
Okay.
So having this system means that, and even for me, I mean, I just set a goal for myself recently where every week I'm going to do a Facebook Live reading my weekly blog post. So yeah, but like, it scares me,
Oh,
I mean, doing a Facebook Live and then leaving that up for everybody to be able to see. I'm doing it. I'm getting up there and I'm doing it. And I've got, the training and the skills to be able to do it. But
yeah.
I'm still making mistakes. And then I'm forcing myself to leave that up there. And that to me is like, oh, like, I don't know. It feels
Okay.
really vulnerable.
Yeah, but
But it's pushing myself forward. And that's, you know, making yourself uncomfortable and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations is the way to grow.
yeah.
So, you were asking about whether or not what happens if it's not working for
Yeah.
people. I haven't found that yet. The thing that people who come to me have to remember is you're going to get as much out of the training as you put in.
Okay.
So if you do the work, right? If you practice the breathing, if you practice the standing and the speaking and the reading, and you use that system and you slowly put yourself into situations that would otherwise have been uncomfortable, and you keep practicing and you keep learning, you'll be able to do it. Everybody can.
Okay.
It's just a question of making sure that you do the work, because it's not, you don't come to me and then magically you're not anxious anymore, or what I give you are the tools to be able
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
manage it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but now I'm wondering because you've studied theater like 26 years ago, and if you all this experience you still get anxious and nervous, then me with zero theater experience, what are my hopes right now?
Your hopes are good. How you
You
just
have
you
the
get up and do
background
it.
and the experience and everything, and you still get nervous. Like my odds
Yeah.
are not looking too good.
Everybody does. I even you talk to actors who are in their 70s who've been doing plays for 50 years. They still get nervous before they go on. It's just a natural part of being a human, I think, but you learn how to deal with it, and you learn how to overcome that so it doesn't stop you from doing the things that are helping you grow as a person.
Okay. Is this tied? Is this technique tied into like when we say therapy for anxiety? Is it tied into each other?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, every once in a while I have a client whose speaking fears are rooted in something bigger than I can handle because
Okay.
they're dealing with past trauma, or sometimes abuse or something like that. If that's the case, then I will recommend to people that they should have the help of somebody who's trained in
Okay.
that regard, because um, it's just not where my training lies. But often the controlled breathing and the small increments towards sort of being able to stand up for yourself can be really helpful for people. But if there is trauma or abuse, then
Yeah.
then that's definitely outside of what I can offer, and it wouldn't be safe for me um, to try and help somebody if they really need help from a therapist.
Oh, okay. Okay. And if my hand starts shaking when I have to do like a
Yeah.
public speech, or I have to do a presentation, or I have to like talk to my employer even though they are not in any way threatening me, but just the thought of it just like makes me really nervous. and I start
Yeah.
stuttering, and I just start like lowering my voice till it's almost like I'm whispering.
Yeah. Yeah.
That does happen sometimes. So like so now I have to like stand in the mountain pose, or at least adjust my posture slowly so I'm standing
Yeah.
straight. I have to like do the deep
Mm-hmm.
breaths, probably in a washroom
Mm-hmm.
somewhere, like deep breaths, deep
Yeah.
breaths.
Yeah. So let me show you. I made an animated GIF, and this is in my free guide as well. And
Okay.
so here's what I do when I'm feeling nervous. I put it up on my phone. I pull it up. This is, if you're listening to the podcast, obviously this is not going
Yeah.
to work, but,
The horse.
and you
Two,
follow along with this.
4, 5. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe out. Oh, like you breathe in.
Yeah. And so it's controlled your breathing. And so it's, you breathe in for 5, you hold for 5, and you breathe out for 10. And it gets you, so you do that in the bathroom, or because it's on my phone. I had a job interview in January, and I just pulled this up. They thought I was just looking at my phone, but I was practicing controlled breathing, right? Getting myself into the zone. And I
Yeah.
got the job, by the way.
Woo!
So
Congrats!
yeah, thanks. I know, it was good.
It
So
is.
it's such a good way, like, and nobody knows what you're doing, but you're preparing yourself for the thing that's coming up. And I think part of it, the act of preparation and just sort of like that mental note to yourself, you feel like you're doing something good for yourself. And sometimes that helps give you a little bit of courage as well if you are
Yeah.
taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this gift with the horse on breathing in and breathing
Yeah.
out. How can someone get it?
On my free guide.
Oh,
So
so how can I get the free guide? Uh,
you can go
where can I get the
to,
free guide? Yeah.
yeah, you go to www.ubuskills, and it's the letters ubskills.com, and you sign up for my newsletter, and
Okay.
then within about an hour, probably less, it arrives in your email box.
Oh, okay.
And it's about 8 pages, and it runs over the 4 things that we just talked about and gives you tips and tricks.
Yeah, and the breathing gift is there, so I can save it to my phone and
Yeah.
then use it to like breathe in and breathe out.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
because
There's
I
a
really
link
like
to
it.
it in the free guide.
Yeah.
It's good. Thank you. It's my friend made that. It's my logo, and it's actually a unicorn.
Unicorn.
And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's
Oh,
what
it's really nice.
I like unicorns. Thank you. So
Yeah.
she did a watercolor, and then I used it for my logo.
Cute. Are there
Yeah, thanks.
any misconceptions about um how do I phrase the question? Are there any misconceptions people have about women who are struggling with speaking in public? Are there like people thinking like I can. Okay, this now I'm actually speaking from my own ignorance right now. So I used to know a lady back in university, around my first year or so, and then she was very skittish in a way, like very
Okay.
shy, very non-confrontational. Even when there were times in which I'm like, "Yo, fight back, damn it!" And then so
Mm,
but she did not like when lecturer would like call her to come to the front of the class. You could sort of like feel her soul die on the inside. Like she just did not like this idea of like talking out.
hmm.
So are there any misconceptions that people have about women who are just anxious when it comes to speaking out?
Yeah, a lot. So, people tend to walk all over people like that because they can. I think probably the biggest misconception is people think that they are not as intelligent, right? Because they're not able to defend themselves, they're not able
Oh,
to speak up, and people will think, people think that they're not confident, although that's probably
yeah,
accurate.
she did not look very confident, to be honest.
Uh, and yeah, you can get a lot of, yeah. Well, and it's interesting because you still remember that, right?
Yes.
We do. It does stick out for us, and we have sort of preconceived biases against people. And so often people without the courage to speak up get bullying, they get spoken to differently.
Talk down to
They're
sometimes.
not, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And, uh, it's, it's, it's one of and it's not fair, but it's also one of the reasons why it's really important to learn sort of a system for how you can manage yourself so that you don't have to take that anymore. Because it's terrible.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
as a person observing it, you can observe this happening, and also you feel so upset for the person and feel so bad for them when you watch this happen.
And does okay? Also, speaking to my ignorance, because I kept telling her fight back, yell back, and so does that really help, or that just makes
Mm-hmm.
you feel worse?
Worse, yeah.
Oh,
So yeah, it somebody in that situation is already feeling badly about themselves, because if they didn't, they'd be able to just get up and speak. It wouldn't matter. They
yeah,
already feel shy. They already feel upset. And also, you got to remember too, they're going through, remember that list I was saying, they've got all of these things happening in their body when they're feeling in this fight, flight, or freeze mode. And it sounds to
yeah,
me like this person in your university class was in freeze mode. And so their heart rate is up, their muscles are twitching, tight chest, dizziness, stomach cramps, weakness, dry mouth, nausea, headache, insomnia, sweating, choking feeling, dry throat, blushing, feeling faint, lightheadedness. They're going through all of these things, and they're trying to fight against that, as well as knowing that everybody's looking at them,
yeah,
that
yeah.
somebody's frustrated with them for not speaking up. And it's sort of perpetuous. It's hard to get out of that. And so, and that again is where that controlled breathing, the thing that we were talking about with our phone,
Yeah,
going into controlled breathing starts to reduce the stress hormones that your brain is pumping into your body,
yeah.
which is making you have all of those feelings, which makes everything worse. And then you're able to get past that because you've reduced sort of the stress hormones that
Okay,
are getting pumped into your bloodstream.
okay, okay. So clearly, I handled
It's
that badly
hard
in the
though.
past.
No.
Clearly, I handled that badly in the past. Okay, so now let me become a better person. So if I see a situation happening like that, like how do I nudge them to like take deep breaths and stand? Like do I tell them that, or like do I do it and then they imitate
You
me?
can. You can, but I think that doing it privately is really helpful, because if they're already in that zone, um, talking about it to them in front of other people is going to be the worst. And
Okay.
so sometimes if I've noticed that with people, I send them an email or something, and I'm like, I noticed that this might have been happening. Let me know if I'm wrong. But uh, one of the things that I've found really helps me is controlled breathing, and then maybe send them the animated GIF.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can really help too. I mean, half of my clients, quite frankly, come to me because their stress responses, so all of the things that we were just talking about,
Yeah.
are so powerful that they can't get past that and be able to um, give a speech or have a confrontational conversation or deal with conflict at work or any of those things.
Okay, okay. So if I see this happening to someone, I just have to maybe email them or take them to a more private place, and then send them the gift like breathe in, hold it, breathe out.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Whoa.
yeah. That can be really helpful. It depends. I mean, if you're how well you know them too, right? And you also have to remember that sometimes if you offer help to people, they don't want help. So they may not
Yeah.
respond, or they might be like mind your own business or whatever. But I do
Yeah,
think you're
yeah,
right. When you see that and you know a solution, it's always helpful to just sort of offer yourself, offer your help, because my thing is I want to empower women to speak up.
yeah,
And I feel very strongly about that. I think all of us need to talk up, because I think it's the world is in such a bad place. And we need to hear from
yeah,
women, right? We need to hear from the voices we haven't heard from
yeah,
yet. And that includes a whole host of voices that we haven't heard from yet.
yeah,
And I want people to feel empowered to speak up and not be talked down to by all of the powerful voices that are currently there.
Yeah.
And so noticing where you can help people, I think that's really cool, and offering them support and offering them solutions.
Okay.
Because I know that controlled breathing helps.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I'm just thinking about how
Yeah.
terribly I handled things in the past. Wow.
Oh my God.
Man, I
Listen,
screwed up.
no, because the thing is when you see that happening, you feel frustrated for that person. You know, if they could just up for themselves, that this wouldn't be happening any longer. And you know, and when we're younger too, it's we don't know as much. We haven't had the same experiences, so we can't cultivate the same empathy or
Yeah, yeah,
compassion,
yeah. The empathy is
right? And
not
as
quite
as
there
we get
yet.
older, yeah, no, we've been around young people. I mean, it's not to say that they don't have it. It's just not cultivated in the same way where,
Yeah.
where you can offer advice from a calm place instead of being frustrated with somebody for letting somebody else walk all over
Yeah, yeah,
them.
yeah. It did irritate me. It's like, what? What? Yo, get up! Fight this person back!
I
Yeah.
know. I mean, sometimes there's a place for that too, right? Everybody responds to different kind of coaching.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so if anyone is listening to this and they can relate to those symptoms you've just listed, so how can they get in touch with you?
Mm-hmm.
How can they work with you to sort of, manage this anxiety and become a better public speaker?
Yeah. Well, go to my website, www.ubuskills.com, and you can learn a bit more about me, and you can see what kind of programs I offer. So I offer the course that I was talking about, Big Voices for Women.
Yes.
I have one-on-one coaching packages, and I coach in person when we're allowed, and also through Zoom. And I also do group workshops. So I'll often be asked to come into workplaces and give workshops for employees and staff to help everybody learn how to communicate better. And it's all the same stuff. It's all the same principles. It's the
Yeah,
four
you see
key
it.
pieces. And then and then it's practice after that. So you learn about that, and then you just practice it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
get
I
better.
know we've talked about the four things, but it's always easier to actually be with you or an expert and actually walk through all of this than reading about it in a guide. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. You're right. And so, and one of the reasons I think that the coaching is more effective than just reading the guide, although it
Yeah.
is a good starting point. And I've had people email me who I've never worked with, but have used my guide. Actually, I just got an email from someone yesterday who said she dealt with a difficult customer, and
Oh.
I was like, yes, I made me feel so happy that she knew she had like skills and she had a system to use, and it made me feel so good.
Yeah, of
But when
course
you're
you
with a
did.
coach,
Your guide helped.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It feels good. But when you work with a coach, you're putting a financial investment in, and you've got somebody there holding you accountable. So over the course of our time working together, you want to do the work because you've made an investment,
Yes.
and you've got somebody else who's leading you along
Yeah.
and giving you sort of goal points. And so if you're really serious, then I think working with a coach is the way to go.
Yes. Yeah. So you can work with her, go to ubuskills.com, and you can see her packages, both for the group workshop, the one-on-one,
Mm-hmm.
and for the program you have on. Is it a program or a course? The,
Yeah, it's a course.
the course. Oh, so it's a live
Yeah.
course, or they can study at their own pace?
No, it's live. Yeah.
Oh, okay, it's a live course. Okay, 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 that makes sense. Okay. So, anything else we've forgotten to ask? Anything else you want to throw in real quick before we wrap up?
Uh, no, I don't think so. I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah.
been so nice to talk to you,
It's
Abby.
been nice to talk to you as well. I've learned a lot. My main takeaway right now is know how to actually handle this when it happens again, because in the past the way I handled it was quite terrible. So at least I have learned to sort of like handle it a lot better, it is like something
Yeah.
that I'm taking very seriously right now. Because I did before this, I always did assume that, you know, if someone is yelling at you, you could just yell back at them. You know, I always like had that idea that literally it's your voice, it's your body, yell back at them. So, but I think I had not quite considered that everyone is in a different mental space, and everyone handles
Yeah.
this confrontation a lot differently. Like my instinct to be yelled at
Yeah.
is to yell at you back, but for most people they might actually
You got
retreat.
fight. That's your response.
Yeah, it's like, how
Yeah.
dare you? Colin beats you up right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Oh,
I have
that's
to
good. I
realize
have
people
always
handle
wished I
it
could be like
differently.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's a
yeah,
good takeaway.
yeah. Thank you. I mean, it's not the
Yeah,
core
thank
of
you.
public speaking, but it made me realize how terrible I was when I was in university. I have to change.
Well, don't beat yourself up too much.
Yeah, I could have handled it a lot better.
We gotta, yeah, yeah, that's good.
So, yeah, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for telling us about, the standing Alexander stand. Well, mountain stand.
Yeah,
Yoga mountain stand. Then the deep breath.
mountain pose. Yeah,
Your mountain
yeah.
pose. Then the deep breath. Then the optimal pitch. Optimum pitch.
Optimum pitch.
Yeah. And
Optimum
then
pitch. Yeah,
the reading with the breath bars.
and text mapping. You got
Text
it.
mapping.
Yep.
Yay!
Yeah.
Did not get them exactly right, but I understood the meaning behind it. Yeah.
No, that's actually really good. Sometimes I forget the order too. So I've been doing it for a
Thank you
while.
so much. Thank you. I've learned a lot about public speaking. Thanks.
Oh, thanks, Abby. Thanks for having me on your show. Mwah. It's been great to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Bye.
Okay. Bye, Abby.
Bye.